Podcasserole. Welcome in.
You're listening to An Imperfect Leader, the Superintendents and Leadership Podcast, a proud member of the Podcasserole Network. Hello, Jamie.
Hey, Peter. How are you?
I'm doing pretty well. You know, sometimes I say that entry and then that intro, and then I wait a few minutes because I get on a little early, and then you come on, and then I have to like splice it together. And typically people would notice that if they're just listening. But because we've seen a surge in viewership, I now it's like Max Headroom, where I'm like, hello, Jamie. And it's like, it's pretty funny.
So is the Max Headroom reference going to work for our audience because they're our age or older and thus indicating...
I think so. We're talking about superintendents, you know.
A podcast that will slowly die merely because we're all older. That's our audience following. Is it going to fly over everybody's head because they're so young?
You know what? I think it is going to spur a renewed interest in Max Headroom. You're welcome.
You know, it's interesting. Side note, Max Headroom, for those that have never seen Max Headroom, would go look it up. It was what I think we in the 80s thought AI would be.
Oh, that's interesting. Oh, that's really interesting. I was having a conversation with a leader today about AI, and it's like, people are really sort of losing their minds about it. And then we had a conversation about Doug Reeves and Jeff Udick about be really clear on how you're using it and then move on and I actually responded to a question. There's a group that friends that I have and that we do like a newsletter each month. And so we ask questions to each other, and then it's just a way to stay in touch since we all live so far away from each other. And this month, an AI question was suggested, and it was like, is it as worrisome as you might think? And so I actually used the example of, I have this lease in Spanish that I had to read for my new job. And I was like, I could labor and spend time. I mean, I don't know how to say sublease in Spanish. And so that's just not, I'm going to learn. And so what I did do was I asked Claude to translate, read, and summarize my lease. So I know that I cannot sublease, that I am responsible for electricity. So that will definitely impact how much air conditioning I choose to run. So exactly. I thought that was pretty interesting. The question I asked my newsletter friends was, the better question is then, if I was so efficient by using AI and I now got back 2.5 hours of my time, what did I use that time for? Like, was it more productive? Did I sit down and read a book? Did I write a letter? Did I do something human because I was using AI to free up some time? And I can't say that I did probably responded to emails, which is terrible.
Exactly. Lord. Can I make a connection to this? I think I can make a connection to our guest, Brian Stevens, from this piece on AI.
You're so good. Go for it.
So I read an article in The Atlantic about AI as it relates to writing and the skill of writing, where many of us are using it in support of writing, and there are students straight up using it to write the thing. And what this writer talked about was how the Atlantic author talked about how writing may be going down the path of hand woven rugs, and that this is a niche, expensive rug because it was created by hand. This is a niche, expensive table because it was hand woodcrafted. You may start to see books that say handwritten or crafted by this author, because you're not going to be able to tell in a lot of the publishing process.
Really interesting. Even like certain foods that say homemade.
Correct.
Right? As opposed to being made in a factory, and you should know there may be tree nuts.
Correct. I thought it was really profound, and it does have me thinking about how I think about the things I purchase, and I definitely lean into things many times, especially stuff that I want to have character. What she said was, the thing that makes writing so special by people is that our brains, unlike AI, discredit ourselves. We doubt ourselves all the time, constantly. We're worried about what we said, so we go back and recheck it. And we go, oh, not that word, this word. And she's like, I remember writing a book, 90% done, threw it away. Because I was like, it's terrible, it's awful. AI never doubts itself, ever. And what she said was, the link I want to make to Brian Stevens, our guest, is that his approach, this conversation about student recruitment and listening to him, his approach is about as what feels to me. Anyway, I don't know this for sure because I'd like to talk to Brian some more, but feels about anti-AI as you can get. That his approach is a handcrafted person-to-person recruitment effort.
Yeah, no, I actually appreciate the connection you're making. I might argue based on my conversation, and look, let the audience be the judge. We'll get into it here in a second. Is I believe maybe a complementary to what you're saying, which is that he is reminding us the value and the importance of the human connection to families and why they'll choose to come to your public schools is the human connection as opposed to anti-AI. I think but why don't we get into it if that's okay?
Yeah, I don't think exactly. I don't think he's anti-AI. What I think he is.
That's what I thought I heard you say. That's why I wanted I'm not sure he's anti-AI. However, I think he's reminding us that there's so much value in homemade in your local school.
Yes, exactly. And if you can figure out a way to share that story with the people that are in your community, and it shifted enrollment in the schools that he's worked in.
Well, let's get into it.
Yeah, let's do it.
You're listening to an Imperfect Leader, the Superintendents and Leadership Podcast. I'm Peter Stiepelman.
And I'm Jamin Mansan.
We'll see you on the other side. Today on An Imperfect Leader, my guest is Brian Stevens, a combat veteran, attorney, and national advocate who leads CAISSA K-12, a consulting firm dedicated to helping public school districts navigate declining enrollments through aggressive student recruitment. Now, after serving his country and practicing law, he discovered this simple truth. Without strong public schools, communities collapse. Brian's efforts across more than 28 states have successfully returned over 30,000 students to traditional public schools. Brian, welcome to An Imperfect Leader.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. I'm excited.
I'm excited to have you. In fact, as I was thinking about this in this intro, when I was superintendent in Columbia, Missouri, we had sister cities. Our Chamber of Commerce, we would go to other communities like Columbia that were typically university towns, typically SCC schools. And so we went to Knoxville, Tennessee. And in Knoxville, we met the superintendent there who said, and he was a former lawyer. He was also a preacher. So he was kind of walking with a book. It wasn't the Bible, but I don't know what to do if I don't have a book in my hand. And so he said, folks, the communities with the best schools win. And that became sort of a rallying cry for our chamber. I'm an educator, so I certainly want to win, but I don't want my neighbor to lose. But this idea of communities with the best schools win. So how do we all win? And I've been reading about your background as a combat veteran, as an attorney, and then practicing law that you had, I don't know, like this, when you were practicing law, you had this sort of epiphany about the importance of public schools. And I agree with you, obviously. Our listeners definitely agree with you. If my first question for you, and you've been so polite to sort of, is this a conversation where you ask me a question or you just talk? So here's my question for you. What was...
First off, before the question,
yeah.
I was born in Columbia, Missouri. Small world.
You're a Boone baby, a Boone County baby.
Yeah, I am. Isn't that funny? All right, small world. But anyway, ask the question.
No, yeah. I want to explore that for a moment. What were your parents doing in Columbia?
My dad was in vet school.
It's one of the best in the nation.
Yep, and I was a little baby there hanging out. My wife is from Missouri, but we live in Tennessee now. But I've lived all over the states.
How about that? So the sister city connection is amazing. So yeah. Columbia to, Missouri to Tennessee. All right, so tell me, what was the specific realization during your career that led you to conclude that without public schools, without strong public schools, communities collapse? And then how did that sort of reshape your professional trajectory?
Yeah, man, that's a great question because we actually turned the entire company around based on, the story I'm about to tell you.
Yeah, please.
Right? So we had a campaign shop. I'm a lawyer, but I'm more of a Lego guy. I didn't enjoy the practice of the law. I like to build Legos. I like to build things. And so our firm really was focusing on running issue campaigns, political campaigns, getting something done. And we certainly represented some schools during that, even think crisis management issues, like communication issues. And unfortunately, we had to deal with some really tough situations at times. But a school board member came to me, this was 15 years ago, and he said, hey, you guys got me elected. You know how to get people to hear the truth, how to educate people on messaging and to communicate, and ultimately, you win a lot of campaigns. Can you recruit students back for us? And I was like, no, what? Why? Just oblivious. And now this was before I found Jesus, right? Before I found public schools. I was always an advocate, but I didn't.
I was about to say, I think you're not supposed to find Jesus in the public schools, but that's a whole Redeemer Church and State thing.
This is we're protecting society is important, right? So it's, I get it.
I couldn't resist.
No, I get it. Let me look into it. I don't know, right? And at the time, my daughter was in private school. And I was like, because we're both, my wife was a lawyer, I was a lawyer. We thought, that's what you did. That's what you did. Did we do research? Probably not. The rhetoric out there was, these are better than these schools. We didn't know why. And we were fairly educated people, but we didn't dig into the subject. So I started looking at school choice. And remember, this is 15 years ago, right? And they had a lot of competition in this school district, and they were losing students. And I didn't even know that the money followed the student. The money left with the district, and the school district was being asked to do more and more with less and less resources. And so we did a pilot program. We're like, let's just test it. Let's just see if we put a great communications. And I thought it was so important what you said at the beginning. Yeah, I'm a combat veteran. And yes, I'm a lawyer and I like to win. But this is about winning for the students. This is about growing the pie and improving education for all the students, all the babies. And so this is not a us versus them. This is a for the children type thing, right? And I think it's important we kind of stay focused on that because I'm a nerd and I studied the effects and the benefits of private education and student enrollment counts and student to teacher ratios, which by the way, there's no study out there that says student to teacher ratio matters for education.
That's right. Although I will tell you. So I remember being a superintendent and standing in front of a staff and at an elementary school and saying that we were going to reduce from 5 sections to 4 sections. And the question was, that's going to raise our class sizes to about 22 or 23. And I said, I know. Here's what the research says. It didn't matter that I was citing Patty's research about class size and the effect size in terms of achievement, and that the more important thing is the quality of the teacher in the room. That was like dead on arrival. And it's where I learned, I'll never forget it. And I did bring my infant child at the time. So I was like, don't yell at me. I'm the child sleeping. But it was like, I knew that didn't matter in terms of the narrative around your community. So then how do you change that narrative or shift the thinking about, okay, how do we provide the very best experience and the very best opportunities for kids without talking about class size? Now, in that moment, that would have been hard because we were talking about closing a section.
No, and I studied, and now in between law school and Army, I got my degree in industrial psychology, which is the movement of humans and how we responded. We're not led with facts and data. We're led with emotion, and we use facts to support those decisions. Historically, that's kind of the way it works. And that's why we run a lot of political campaigns, because we get that the facts are important to support your emotions, right? And so I think that's my first pro tip today is we got to lead with emotions. And so we led with emotion. And when I'm sitting with the school district, I'm with their communications department. This is district 80, 90,000 plus students. And the communications director, the person in charge of communicating their message, said, we don't have anything to celebrate. We don't have anything to share. And I was like, oh no, you're broken. Look at all this awesome stuff you've got. Look at all the children. They're going off to the military or trade schools or colleges, and they're productive members of society, and you're in a impoverished district, and it's tough. And look all the good you're doing. Hit on the negative because you're getting pounded on over here. And I was like, oh God, let's help. Let's do a pilot program. 2 years, we recruited 2,000 students back, which brought 25 million or something back to the district. And they were like, wow, this works. And we're like, we like this work. This was rewarding. And then I realized my daughter was not having a great education at private school. Like all these things started to correspond. And during this time, we moved our daughter to public school. We started to experiment more and more over 2 more years with supporting public schools in communicating better, right? Their value, their awesomeness, their incredibleness. And they were just, man, we got resistance, brother. You're getting pounded in the press. And so I said, wow, if we don't do something about this, who is going to? So take some leadership, do what you got to do. And we transformed the entire company. We got rid of all of our legacy work, right? We got rid of, my partners thought I was nuts. They probably still do, is we got rid of political campaigns and anything that was not public schools. And we completely transformed the company. Now our only clients are public schools.
That's amazing. Okay, so I want to talk about some of the tools because I read this New York Times article and you were featured in it. And it was about, and I think you said something like, the monopoly is over for public education. And then you discussed a passion index where supporters of school choice are 3.5 times more passionate than they are opposed to it. And then there was a national parent poll, and you revealed that 85% of parents are satisfied with their current school, and yet 70% are still open to exploring other options. And so for these school leaders to maybe to continue on this conversation just a little bit, who have never had to really sell their districts before. So in the case that you were just describing, this pilot that you were running where they were like, we've got nothing to celebrate. And you're like, oh no, we can reclaim the narrative here because there are amazing people doing amazing things. If you just talk to your kids, they'll tell you about those teachers who made a difference in their lives and have compelled them and propelled them into this great into their lives and how they're contributing to society. So what might be some like first steps in transitioning from this like traditional administrative mindset about schools and then how to focus it on student recruitment?
I think that we've got to kind of back up one step and accept that the monopoly's over. I think that as a leader, the first thing we've got to accept that the world's changed. And if you don't change with it, you're a dinosaur, right? They say the stupidest thing in business to say, that's the way we've always done it. If you say that around me, we're going to get in an argument. We're going to have a discussion. And schools are businesses. Now, they're a business for public good, in my opinion, but they're a business nonetheless, right? We have a return on investment that we want, which is a great adult, like producing a great adult. That's the KPI that I think about, right? I wish more people thought it that way. So the first thing is to accept the monopoly's over. There's not in the history of humankind, in any form of government, like that you can show that a monopoly, once it's been demonopolized, that it ever went back to becoming a monopoly again. It's just, think about in our lifetime, Ma Bell, we had a big phone thing, it's gone. We're never going to have one phone company. It's over with. The ball is rolling too fast on this. And you're talking about that passion index, right? It's people want to do what's best for their children. They don't always know what's best, but anything new, grass is greener on the other side of the fence. People get excited. It's human nature, right? And so the first thing I think a leader should do is this is over with. And no one on my team better act like this is not our responsibility anymore. And that's got to filter all the way up and down the ladder at every aspect of it. And that is a lot of work. The days of not treating them like customers is a problem. And we have to completely uncork that. I think that's step number one.
And I wrote a note to myself, and I can't remember exactly why I wrote it, but it was something about a restaurant analogy and what it reveals about the decline of brand loyalty in education. So I think that's I wrote that down as a note to myself to think, there might be an opportunity to bring that up. And I think that's right now, because if the monopoly's over and they have to rethink the way that they talk about and feel about their schools, what was the restaurant analogy and how does it apply?
I think that certainly we have to accept the fact that things have changed. But number two, we've got to go and advocate to get all the same tools our competition has. And so this is the analogy that I've used in many speeches is let's assume you got a restaurant on Main Street and it serves a really solid breakfast, right? It's got your 5 dishes. You like it. It's consistent. You're going to go in there, but they don't have a menu. You just go and order, right? They don't have an open sign. They're not allowed to have an open sign out front that says open for business. They're not allowed to do that because the city wouldn't like that very much. People wouldn't like you using their money to put an open sign in the window or a menu. Just serve us our food and let us leave. Now, then 4 other restaurants open up right on Main Street across the street, right? Think private schools, vouchers, charter schools, home schools, whatever it is, lots of competition. And then this really scary no school thing that's down there. And now they're allowed to put out a menu. They're allowed to have a person stand on the corner asking you to come in for a discount and a deal. They're allowed to give you a 10% off if you want to show up, right? They can change their menu.
Okay.
They can
now I'm remembering. I remember thinking to myself, okay, so the public schools are kind of like you walk in, not only is there no menu, it's sort of like this buffet. I don't know. Or maybe not even that we tell you what we have and you're saying across the street, they are specialized in terms of cuisine.
Yeah, and that's what school choice is about, right? People say, I want a critical thinker. I don't want a person that's just a test taker. And it's, wait a minute. I get that. I've never once given my team members here a standardized test. I get it. But it's not the fault of one school board member, one superintendent, one teacher, one principal that they have to focus on standardized testing. It's our fault. It's us, the citizens, that elected people to office, and they did No Child Left Behind. And it was a good idea. It was a great concept, and it made us teach to the test. And
I
so
agree
we had a bad
with you.
outcome.
I mean, sometimes so for me, No Child Left Behind forced us to consider not just the overall progress of students, but looking at individual groups of kids to say, okay, so it revealed for us within our systems that those who have been historically underrepresented in gifted, in higher level coursework, in CTE courses, like why is it that our schools look a certain way? Where it became problematic was it created this blaming and shaming punishment model that then said, then we're going to reconstitute and fire everybody. And if you don't understand culture, right? Culture eats strategy every day. And so the culture of your school was completely undermined and removed. and then new people were brought in and you suspected something was going to change without fundamentally thinking about your system.
It was a study that came out that was been completely misconstrued if anyone ever sees this. And it said since the 1970s, we've increased employee count at schools by 57%. I think I'm getting this math right. Student counts only increased 4%, but their grades have not changed. The standardized testing have not changed. They're wasting money. I'm like, wait a minute. In that same 50-year period, we created massive bureaucracies, massive reports. And I was in the Army, man. I know how to fill out forms and training.
Yeah.
And so now we've got to have staff hired just to fill out the paperwork. They're not hired to teach the kids. As a matter of fact, we've lost money from the teaching, and we now have bureaucrats filling out paperwork because that's what the laws demand of the schools. It's not the school's fault. We got to uncork all that. And so now you get this school choice movement, and they say we want critical thinkers. Every principal on the planet, private school, public school, want critical thinkers. Duh. But we don't give them the resources to do that. But we give it to the competition. So they're allowed to change their menus. They're allowed to augment and allow you to think and be creative. But they're holding us back as public school employees, even though public schools, and we can get into the history of public schools if you want, we've been working for, this is going to sound extreme, for 2,000 years to have free public education for all. We hit it in the 70s after segregation from the 50s and 60s. We had it for about 15 to 20 years before we started to destroy the model, before school choice came. Well, that didn't work. We only tried it for 15 years, man. And like we let us become critical thinkers. Let us adjust. Standardized testing, I think, has its value, but we're the components to allow us to teach critical thinkers too. We got to balance this approach. And I think we're overbalancing it now with rampant school choice. And so why we support public schools only, we won't represent any of the others, is because they have to teach all the babies and all the kids. But we have to uncork this and allow us to have great menus, allow us to change the way we teach, allow us to create critical thinkers. But we have to change the laws.
If you're just joining us today, my guest today is Brian Stevens, combat veteran, attorney, and national advocate who leads CAISSA K-12. Now, in the leadership model that I use to advise others, there's a dimension. It's called the leader's learning work. And inside that dimension, there are a number of terms. There are two that come to mind: applying systems and design thinking. And one element of systems thinking is something called the stock and flow model. And a stock is anything that you're trying to achieve. So maybe in our conversation, it's increasing enrollment for schools. Your actions will fill that stock. So I know you have given an example in other conversations you've had with going door to door at schools. So that's an example. And those actions can result in that stock going up, right? Increasing enrollment. But they can also, you can lose trust with your community. And so your stock can also flow out. So the goal here is to have this balance of keeping that stock in really good shape. With enrollment, it could be that your inflow could overcrowd your schools. So if you're really successful, it means that you have to think about building new schools, building additions, all this kind of thing. But too much outflow could also result in laying off, closing schools, those kinds of things. So make sense so far?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So looking into the future, I think you've referred to it as your crystal ball. You predict that school choice, do you have them back? Oh, you do have them back.
The office got me this a couple of years ago, this crystal ball.
I love it.
And it's just, if you study history, you can kind of see the future.
If you're contextualist, absolutely. Our history absolutely repeats over and over. And sometimes we just like to think of ourselves as futurists. It would be really important to kind of understand how we got here. But looking into your crystal ball, you predict that school choice nationwide is a reality, right? As you said, the monopoly is over. If we think that we're putting the genie back in the bottle, it is not going to happen. So what is, I was going to say the single most important, but what is an important controllable that a superintendent or a principal can focus on today that really does ensure that their district thrives in this competitive market?
Yeah, I do want to say, I want to kind of mention the trend line because I want to make this, hopefully people have this has some impact on people.
Please.
About 52 million children in K-12 space. The trend lines over the next 10 years show that in highly competitive markets, that if there's no competition, if public schools do not compete, that number could drop down to 25, 30 million in public schools. Right now, it's about 46, 47 million in public schools. It used to be closer to 50, and the trend lines are dropping dramatically down to about 30 million. Big impact. But the trend lines also show that if you're competitive in a honest, factual, really not competitive, if you just advocate for yourselves, if you just let people know that you're awesome and actually present a choice to the parents, that line is still going to go down. But it's not going to go down as dramatically because we have lowering birth rates. We can't affect that, historically, like if you're in a district. So it's going to drift down, but the competitor schools are going up in enrollment dramatically in high competition areas. It started off in the urban area 15 years ago, moved to the suburban areas about 8 to 12 years ago, and now it's in every state, especially after COVID, right? Virtual schools. And then there's a real scary number, which as many as 3 to 5 million children are unschooled in the nation. We don't even know how many. The trends are somewhere between 3 to 5, which is if you take 50 million, 5 million, that could be as much as 8 to 10% of the kids aren't in any school. That number should scare people. And if you care about all the kids, you want to start advocating for yourselves right now. So let me get to your question. All right, Peter, sorry.
No, I appreciate the context. And just as a clarification, unschooled meaning homeschool or unschooled like nothing?
Unschool is like we go and recruit kids that are sitting in homeless shelters that are not in any school during the day. Homeschool is homeschool. Virtual school is virtual school. They're getting something. And some of them are great, some of them are not. And just like a private school, some of them are great, some of them are not. Just like public school, some of them are great, some of them are not. But we have unschooled, and we've gone to homeless shelters. We've gone into the strawberry fields in Georgia. Said, enrollment's down. What's going on? The kids are sitting at home. People didn't even know they could send their kids in the migratory element.
And there remain federal protections of the McKinney-Vento Act in terms of making sure if a child is unhoused that they do have access to school, those types of things.
Right. And that number seems to be trending up, but we really don't know how many students are in that area. So I can't say with certainty that number's trending up or down, but it's there. All right. So we want to get all the babies getting some education, right? So once they decide they're going to advocate for themselves, I think they've got to learn what they're not good at. And as every leader should know, the word priority is one thing, right? It's Latin for one. There's no such thing as priorities. It's not plural in my opinion. And their mission is to teach and educate the babies. And if they do that really well and they advocate for better teaching models and to create critical thinkers, you're going to have to bring in some outside people that know how to sell. And I used to not believe this, even though we're in that business. We originally started trying to teach people how to do this. And so we'd get teachers in a room and principals in a room, and we'd send them door to door, and they are trained to be great teachers. A surgeon's going to be a surgeon. A CPA is going to do the math. A teacher needs to teach. A principal needs to manage that system. But all too often we hear school districts trying to do it all. You don't build your own school buses, right? You don't have a toilet paper manufacturing company, and you're not good salespeople, right? They don't want to be great salespeople. Don't. And so we still do a lot of customer service training because they do have to be great customer service people.
That front office is the reason why you'll either win or lose a family.
And we do a lot of customer service training in Secret Shopper to say, hey, like we got all these people to show up and so-and-so at the front desk was like, I'm too busy. You can't be, this is your customer. But getting a mindset shift is not as difficult if you're purposeful about it. And so they've got to learn what they're not good at. And we've not been able to train teachers to be salespeople and thinking about a priority. I was like, duh, Brian, duh. They're teachers. They went to school to learn how to teach and educate. And we need them to do that. And we keep adding more burden on them. We're going to lose them, which has been happening. And so getting them to understand that, man, you got to build a sales team. You can do it with us. You don't have to do it with us. Just build an advocacy team. People are going to advocate for you. And I think that's real good. So let the teachers actually focus on providing the best education possible.
With your advocacy team, I imagine that has inside the system as well as recruiting external spokespeople or advocates within the community. Because I remember when we did an annual survey with our community about how do you get your information, and it was every year, 90% of the community got their information from friends and neighbors. They didn't care about our website. They kind of cared about our quarterly report. They somewhat were interested in our emailed newsletters. But it was more important that they got information from their friends and neighbors about how they felt about their schools. So they could say, as a whole, I think public education is probably a C. My school, A. I love my school. And so, like, tell us what you love about your school. And so they would share that with friends and neighbors.
That's all emotional based.
Yeah.
That's all emotional based. But you go out there and say, you're being emotional. You need to look at the data and then pick us. Like, unfortunately, you got to meet people where they are. And the latest Harvard study that I've seen said that we get as many as 15,000 messages a day. A day, right? We're overwhelmed with phones and billboards and TV ads and all this stuff. We're overwhelmed. And our job to let people know about our awesome programs is to make it real simple, simpler than any educated person wants it to be, right? I just remember this one, I was prepping a superintendent to go meet with the governor, and man, she came in, and I've seen the story so many times. Like I just remember this one. She was awesome. She's super smart, so much smarter than I was. She had 27 things she needed to get through. Like it was dope. It was a book report. It was tab. It was incredible. And I was like, oh my gosh, how much time do you have with the governor? 15 minutes. Okay. What's the most important? Brian, it's all important. I go, yeah, I know it's all important. I've read it. The governor has 15 minutes, and you're not going to get any of this across to the governor in 15 minutes. your opportunity, even if you had all day, it's too much. The human brain can remember about 3 things before it needs to use that information.
Oh, you learned that in law school.
Yeah. That's right.
I remember our attorney would say to me, Peter, in threes. That's all. That's a jury
Threes.
can handle in threes. That's what your community can handle in threes. I love it.
It's just too much. And so we have a hard time when all of it's important to say, I got to let some of it go. And if you're an educator, you don't want to let any of it go. And that's why I love you. That's why I'm proud of you. But we got to feed people slowly, really consistent messages over time, really simple, so that we can get that coffee talk right in the community, right? But if you just say they need to know, they don't need to know anything. They need to pay attention. No, they don't. People are busy. It is our job to say it until we're blue in the face. And we have to be real simple and really hit the high points over and over again. And that discipline, we call it message discipline, is hard.
I want to ask you a question that I ask every guest who comes on the podcast. How does the term an imperfect leader resonate with you?
Accurate. Anyone that thinks that's not true is ridiculous, in my opinion. It's a great title, by the way, but we're all imperfect. We're all train wrecks. And I have to remind people, adults, we're senior people, may even look up to us because we've got a little gray in our beards and stuff. I'm going to make tons of mistakes, man. Tons. It's not about the mistakes. It's about the recovery. I was watching the Masters this weekend. And it's funny, as a little kid, I played a lot of golf. I grew up in Florida. And hit a ball in the woods, I'd lose my mind. The pros, they hit the ball in the woods and they just take it easy, smooth, hit the ball right on the green. They don't break a golf club like little Brian Stevens did at 12. They handle it well because they know they're going to have imperfections. They know they're going to have a lot of failures, but it doesn't make them a failure, right? They're going to keep recovering until they win. McIlroy won. Sorry if that's a spoiler to anybody. He made a lot of bad shots, a lot. And he just recovered and just didn't sweat it. So yeah, of course, imperfect leaders. What else is there? I guess is my answer to your question.
Hey, district leaders, I know you already know this. In schools worldwide, cell phones are posing real challenges on student engagement and mental well-being, and I want you to meet Yonder, a proud sponsor of an imperfect leader. And let me share this story from a visit I made to some schools in Silicon Valley. I asked some kids what they liked about Yonder, and after some funny looks, they shared that actually, with Yonder, teachers don't have to battle with them over phones anymore. In fact, one kid said to me he didn't have to worry anymore about his parents texting him in class, and the kid next to him sort of shoved him and goes, "Texting? My mom used to FaceTime me in class." I want to introduce you to a support system that increases teaching and learning. I want you to discover why 1 million students choose Yonder daily. Minimize distractions, maximize learning potential. To learn more, go to overyonder.com. YONDR. So I want to talk a minute about the Mosaic Project. It is one of our favorite organizations and has over 25 years of experience empowering students to really celebrate differences, communicate assertively, and resolve conflict peacefully at their outdoor school. I happen to have experience being part of the Mosaic Project, and so I can absolutely tell you it's an amazing organization. Their innovative SEL curriculum is now available to our Imperfect Leader audience. And so you can get a 10% discount through their new documentary film-based Mosaic Classroom Project. So just let the people know during your onboarding process to receive that 10% discount is to just mention an Imperfect Leader. Learn more about the Mosaic Project at mosaicproject.org.
When leaders think in systems, they think differently. They see the big picture, making decisions that create coherence and strengthen communication across their teams. They build adaptability, flexibility, and engagement. Every day, school leaders face complex challenges, from student engagement to staff alignment. What if your team could see those challenges as part of a bigger picture? That's what happens when you think in systems. It's how leaders turn complexity into connection and challenges into opportunities for growth. At the Waters Center for Systems Thinking, we help educators and organizations build this capacity, developing the habits and tools that turn vision into action. Think differently, think in systems. Sign up for our webinars, free resources, or a consultation by visiting our website, which you can find in the show notes.
We're back for segment 2 of An Imperfect Leader called Imperfect Leadership in After Action, and our guest is Brian Stevens, a combat veteran, attorney, and national advocate who leads CAISSA K-12. Now, in this segment, we ask our guests to deconstruct a decision they made, and then we kind of talk about what they learned from it. So, Brian, what happened?
I'm glad you sent me this ahead of time because the number of mistakes I've made as a leader is great and wide. It's enormous. And we were talking on the first segment it's about the recovery.
Yes.
But one thing kind of struck me is when we first started to get into this space, I was very nice, but not very kind. And the analogy I always use is you see somebody with a flat tire on the side of the road and you're like, and they don't have a spare tire and they don't know how to replace the tire. And you're, oh, I feel so bad for you. That's horrible. What a shame. And then I leave. And somebody that's kind is going to, oh God, come on, man, Peter, bring a spare tire. You got to have your jack. You need these things. Let me show you how to do it. And they're getting on to you, but they're replacing the tire. That's kind in my opinion, right? And I really fell into consultant speak for a while. And a consultant, I heard this analogy once, which is they want to ask to borrow your watch and then charge you to tell you what time it is. And I was falling into this. I was being not me for a while because I thought that public school officials, that I don't want to rub anybody wrong. I don't want to upset anybody. And it was tearing me up inside. It wasn't who I was. And the issue was I knew I wasn't bringing the value they needed. I was going along to get along for a while. And it was just chewing me up inside. And luckily I had a good mentor that said, you got to kind of do what you got to do. You're focused on value. That's your thing, man. Focus on value. And maybe some clients won't go along with you. Maybe not everybody will come with you if you tell them they're not pretty and smart, right? Which is, so many people want to be told that you're pretty and you're smart.
Yeah, they go to ChatGPT for that now, so it's fine.
Boy, don't they? ChatGPT, boy, I feel like a winner when I read that stuff. And I got to stay away from it because it's about improving, right? And ChatGPT doesn't want me to improve, but I want the people around me to improve, and I want them to help me improve because I'm a totally imperfect person. And I just said it to a client. I just said, we were talking about billboards, Peter. Okay, this was in our infancy years ago when we were doing some teaching and trying to help them. And they always want billboards or TV commercials or something they can see. And a billboard will not recruit one student.
They're all over Arizona. My superintendent colleagues in Arizona talk about, because of open enrollment, that they've taken to billboards.
I get it. And there are, it's funny, like
without evidence that it works.
Evidence.
So I'm concurring with you.
Yeah. And now this is where, as a leader, I don't need your concurrence anymore. My job is to educate you on the data. I appreciate your concurrence. Don't get me wrong. It feels good to hear. I like to be told I'm pretty and smart.
That's right.
I'm still waiting. That's right.
Okay.
But we have, and because we've run so many political issue campaigns, we had the data points, man. We have, last I checked, 58 or 65 SKUs, somewhere in there, like things that we can do to recruit a student, like a laundry list. Billboards are down there way, way down 30 or 40, right? There's value from building your reputation, making people know that you exist. Charter schools, virtual schools, need to let people know they exist. So there's some value in air campaigns, marketing, right? Like TV commercials. And then people will start to explore it. They already know the public schools exist.
Yeah.
Right? Like from a reputation.
And I imagine that's different from like when I'm driving in a small community, a rural community, any community, but I've noticed this more in rural communities because they may have a graduating class of 30 or 50. And they'll have a picture of every child in the senior class as you're just driving down Main Street or driving down a major thoroughfare. And it shows a picture of the kid and what they're doing next and celebrating, whether it's 2-year, 4-year, military, internship, going into the workforce, they're celebrating each child. That I think is different than the billboard that you're describing in terms of come to our school, we're the best, whatever.
You said it. One is reputation building. You got the teacher of the year, put it on a TV commercial, put it on a billboard, him or her, let them know students graduating. Celebration is for mass communication. Reputation building, mass communication, right? You've got to do those things. It won't enroll a new student, all right? And a parent that is shopping, it won't keep them, all right? A parent that's shopping is going to shop. And so billboards can be important. I understand. And I was really docile. And I wasn't being a psychologist. I wasn't being a lawyer. I wasn't being anything. I was just going along to get along. It was tearing me up inside. And finally I just said, they don't work. They just don't work. And let me give you 5 minutes to explain the data points. And let me tell you the things you need to pay for first, second, third, fourth, fifth. That's way down here. And they go, we don't have enough money to do that. There's just not enough resources to do everything you ever wanted. You've got to really get focused. And once we started to embrace bringing value and telling people not what they wanted to hear, but what would actually help them, our company started blowing up. And we lose clients all the time. And we don't go to business with clients when they're completely resistant to change And because they said, we want a billboard, then go hire somebody to do a billboard. We're not going to do that for you. What do you
Without
mean?
giving away too much
Because
of the
it
special
doesn't help
sauce,
you.
what is one of the
Yeah.
top 5 that do work?
Human connections. You already said it. It's not, I don't think it's a secret. It's kind of a secret sauce. The rhythm, the methodologies, the communication patterns that we follow, we use a lot of science in that. But innately, I think we all know it's a human talking about your awesome top 3 points and really helping another human get the best for their child. That's it. And so we have to, first off, we got to work a lot with districts to find those great key messaging points for every school. You don't sell to the district. You sell to individual schools. People pick a school. They don't pick a district. They pick a teacher. They leave because of a teacher. It's all very personal. This is a very important decision. And we could have as many as, we hover somewhere around 20 to 30 contacts to inform and educate a family over ideally a 9-month period.
Yeah.
And we have to push it in their face, but we've got to talk to them. We have to use live phone calls. We have to go to where they're going.
I
It's
totally
a heavy
appreciate
lift.
that.
It's not AI,
no, it's
man.
true.
It's not AI.
I know.
And it's not a text message. A text message is good. We use a lot of those. We use a lot of those.
It's great
To
on a
get them
snow
to have
day
a-
to know, but it's not great in terms of building a real human connection with somebody. I totally
Yeah,
agree.
you got to build trust. You got to
All right,
build trust.
let me ask. So if I understand correctly, in terms of how, as you're starting out your business and as you're shifting your focus to, and I guess narrowing your focus, so it's not really shifting because that sounds like you're distracted, but narrowing in terms of this is the work that we want to do. And what I think I understood to be true is that as you were doing this, what got overlooked was this wanting to be supportive, but not necessarily moving the needle for folks because you were approaching this from a nice perspective as opposed to kind,
No.
because clear is kind. So if you're clearly saying to them, your billboards don't work, let's work through how this actually works. Is that what got
Yeah, but
overlooked?
I
through the work?
don't think I was being, I don't think I was being supportive. That's my
Okay.
whole point is I think
Gotcha.
that I was filling with rose-colored glasses. I was telling somebody what they want to hear.
You are admiring the problem. Man, this is terrible. This is, I
Yeah,
can see it.
such an ineffective tool to actually improve. But it makes people feel good, but it doesn't help them achieve anything. It doesn't help them win. And so I don't consider that support. I think it's a false front, right?
I
And
understand.
that was, and we are still training our leaders to talk this way. Today, we have our little podcast, not like yours, and we do videos to help instruct our team on how to have a clear conversation that helps somebody and not just tell them what you think they want to hear. You don't add any value for
It's
that. We're
probably
still
the hardest
talking
thing,
about
providing good, authentic, genuine, and kind feedback because you want to build people up, not destruct their human spirit as you're working towards growth. Can I ask about relationships? So I imagine as you were doing this process and learning about this work, you were learning something about relationships or some new relationships were formed through the process.
Yeah, I've gone from public schools help Little Brian Stevens to believing in public schools to now we represent some of the biggest districts across the nation and learning from the superintendents, learning from the school boards, the teachers. I still love to go do my own secret shopping if I can. I still love to go and give speeches and customer service training. I don't always get that opportunity, but when I can, I love to go do that because I learned so much from the people that are in the trenches day to day. So it's a real reciprocal relationship. Without that partnership, I can't do anything for people.
So here you are building relationships, you're meeting new people, you're learning from them. But I want to back up to, as you're describing what you were learning, there's what got overlooked, but there's also a part of what you own. So what was frustrating for you as you were figuring all of this out?
I think that as I was trying to build relationships, I understood the disadvantages of the way school choice was being rolled out. I understood the error in the laws, how it's really not a level playing field at all. It's not a fair and balanced way. They're getting a lot more tools than we are. And I rushed the education with a lot of people. I wanted them to be where I was, and I didn't give them an opportunity to learn at the same pace. And I got frustrated that I would run into people in schools that were like, this isn't our job, this is not right. And I would get frustrated instead of giving them, just calming down and educating them and getting them up to speed the same way that I had the chance to get up to speed. It's scary, it's weird, it's new, it's different, but I've been dealing with this for 15 years now. Some people are just now starting to get up to it, and I got to be more patient as a leader in this regard.
I love it. Okay, so as we end our conversation today, I'm interested to know what is something that was good that came out of the experience, because that's what, through an AAR process, you deconstruct, but you also say, look, I learned something pretty valuable and I made better decisions moving forward. What would you say was that good that came out of the situation?
I think the biggest epiphany, like aha moment that I had during this is how good public schools really are, how well they educate millions of students differently in every community, and the pressure that they have to do everything perfect, which doesn't exist, right? The pressure they have. The sad thing was they didn't understand how great they were. They didn't understand how awesome and what they're doing that's so good. And so if we get an opportunity to shine a light on how good that they're already doing, I think that's massive value. And that's what we're all real happy that we changed course and we're only in this space now, because that feels like something worth advocating for, fighting for, right? Is all the good that they're doing to educate these kids. I'd like to get more schools on board with realizing how awesome they are. And no, they're not perfect. Yes, they've got a lot of work to do. Yes, we want everybody to improve, but it doesn't mean we ought to throw the baby out with the bathwater, so to speak.
I love it. I would encourage you to, if you have not been to an AASA conference, the American Association of School Administrators, this is a big topic. There are often at least in the last 2 years, big sessions around reclaiming the narrative on schools and giving superintendents the tips on how to do that. And I could imagine that they would love to hear your voice. And so today, our guest was Brian Stevens, combat veteran and attorney, national advocate who leads CAISSA K-12. And a big part of their work, obviously, as you've been hearing today, is about increasing enrollment in our schools. And I was thinking about this nice versus kind, and it was like you shifted from being a fan of schools to actually a coach, being alongside our leaders to help them really achieve what they're meant to do, which is provide every kid with an excellent education. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
All right, thanks for having me on, man. I really enjoy this and hope we can keep adding value to your listeners. Thank you.
All right, we're back. Peter, I'm ready. Are you ready to jump in? Are you ready to jump in?
I am.
I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed listening to him. I think he's really interesting. Honestly, it left me wanting more. If that's his goal, he's a pretty good podcaster, because what I want to know is, like, how did that work? And what did happen here? Or maybe back to my old standby of the Post-it that is posted on your computer somewhere that says, how come you didn't ask this? The idea, here's a guy who came from political campaign running, as well as a ton of other things in his career. And so when I started thinking about that model, is he applying running a political campaign to running a campaign to recruit students back to public schools? And if so, what does recruiting when he talked about running the pilot program in the start of this company and recruiting 2,000 students back to a district, I'm really interested to know, like, what does that look like? What do you do? It sounds like it was phone calls for sure, right? And it sounds like there were newsletters. But to me, I inferred that he's going door to door, that he's talking to people. I mean,
it's interesting you should say that. I agree. A couple of times, like, so is this your secret sauce? And I was like, oh, it's so guarded. And maybe that's because, like, hire me. I'll tell you how to get kids back. I do think when I think about superintendents who are proposing a tax increase, for example, to their community because they need to raise revenue because state funding has gone down or federal funding is disappearing, they'll spend a good year, maybe even 18 months, really running a campaign, getting out to every Rotary Club and every Kiwanis Club and really being very clear about what they're trying to do, and that an investment in your public schools is going to yield X, Y, or Z for kids. And so I imagine that's a very similar piece. He talked about, talking about things in threes and being really intentional about what you're trying to achieve. And I do agree. It's almost a door-to-door effort, or an intentional inviting community into your schools and really breaking down barriers to communication and entry so that families feel really good about what's happening in the local schools. Like, he himself was like, oh, my kid was at a private school. I thought that was the right way to go. I mean, we're of certain means and we've got certain jobs. And so it just like, that was what we thought. Then our kid went to the local public school and had a much better experience, was like totally challenged. And
I thought it was fascinating, and it made me say, yeah. And it had me thinking about this idea. You know how we've talked about in the past about smaller rural districts where the school becomes the community center. It becomes the place at which multiple gatherings are put in there, right? You've got multiple different things that the community comes together at the school to do. As a result, the principal and the people from in that district are connecting with the community pretty regularly. Besides the very fact, like, you probably do live in a smaller town and may know more people, or probably just know more people there. what can a suburban and or urban school system, bigger school systems, learn from that model that would allow them to shift the way in which the school is experienced? How does this school become a place where it draws people together as opposed to just being the place you send your kids?
It's a really good question, and something that particularly post-pandemic school districts have had to think about. They've had to reconcile the fact that it wasn't just the foregone conclusion that everyone's going to come to this school. Now you had to actually do something. And so I do think, I mean, one of the things he says is lead with emotion to change the narrative. And so I do think it is, people are, you could say like, oh, we offer AP courses and we've got all these things. And those are just facts and data. Like kids who go to our schools outperform their local and state and even national peers. That's great. What are you going to do for my kid? Which very, I totally think is an appropriate question a parent might ask. That's amazing that this is happening, overall. What about my child? And so meeting them where they are in terms of an emotional response of, what do you want for your child? We can provide that here. Right? I want my kid to be valued and honored. I want an experience where they interact with others and really understand that when they get their education here, the world will be different for them and for our family. Like, yeah, you can do that here. And it's like, oh, I want that then.
Yeah.
Like, I want to know it's going to be okay.
He uses that line, that very idea, in his argument about that we as public school educators haven't accepted that competition is here to stay. And there's a part of me that's like, oh, I fully get that. Like as a public educator, like I could see how being in the tradition makes it difficult to see us as not the center.
Yeah.
Public educators.
Specifically, he said the monopoly's over. Like, I think as a leader, the first thing we got to accept is the world's changed.
It's the limiting mindset that we carry. I'm really talking about, I'm being very, very selfish here because I am a 32-year public educator. What mindset is limiting my...
We've been the only game in town, so we don't even think that you might choose something else. And then we're affronted when you choose a charter school. We're like, well, why would you do that? You're abandoning the public schools.
I mean, I will say I have definitely held that mindset in the past, but what I think has changed for me now, different from when I was started at 22, right? Probably that I held for like a good 20 years, maybe 15 years, is that now I'm like, I don't really care what kind of school it is, as long as it's being innovative and trying something else, trying something that's really working for kids. I'm all in. Like, I don't care whether it's a private, whether it's a homeschool, a micro school, all the different things that we've talked about. Tell me what you're trying that's new and kids are thriving. That's what
I would say it can also be, what have you been doing that's really working wonderfully for kids, and that these traditions are rich and amazing. And so I'm going to go to something he said, which is that we do an incredible job, but we forget to tell people how great we are. And so when I am affronted that you would choose something else, it's really, the blame should be on me for not telling our story better. Because I'm like, wait, we're so much better. We have so many different opportunities. You can take all these, not just higher level courses, but these career and technical ed courses, and you can, whatever it is, like, let your imagination be your only limitation, right? And it's like, yeah, but did you tell parents that? Do they know? Or are you just like, it's in the course catalog, I hope you find it?
I mean, that leans into this other quote that he said was, people pick a school, they don't pick a district. They pick a teacher, or they leave because of a teacher. It's all very personal to them. It's a very important decision. Exactly. Like, when I think of, we've talked about this 1,000 times as well, but when I think of I'm not interested in the district. I don't really care about the district all that much. I do care about the schools that my kid goes to. And then within that school, I care about the principal. I care about the teachers. I want to know, I want time, if I could have my druthers as a parent, I want time in each classroom to get a sense of the teaching ability, so I might place my kid in the class that I think he would thrive the best.
Every superintendent right now listening is rolling their eyes like, I am. That's what all 30 parents want. Everybody's going to come through.
Totally. I'm
shopping.
The worst.
Yeah.
I'm definitely the worst, because I'm a 32 public educator. Of course, I know exactly what question to ask. I know exactly what to be looking for. I know all those things. I'm not like all teachers are what all people are.
Let me guarantee you that your principals also know that you have that background, and so they're also going to make really smart choices for your kid as well. They're like, oh Lord,
I don't
know what we're dealing with. Yeah,
You know
give him the
who
good
you don't
one.
want coming
Give
to
him
the office
give him
every
the
day?
most. Yeah.
Exhausting. Exactly. Anyway, I thought his approach is interesting. I really enjoyed listening to him, and I'm grateful that he was a guest. I would like to hear more.
Yeah, I'm also grateful to Brian Stevens. Often we talk to leaders who are doing the work, and sometimes we get the opportunity to talk to those who are supporting the leaders who are doing the work. And without people like Brian, schools, I mean, literally when he said $25 million or so, bringing back 2,000 kids, you go like, wait, is the math right? It's right. That's like $12,500 a kid or something like that. That's actually on the low end of most states. So yeah, he's doing an important job. So many of us are, we're looking for people who can help us to kind of think that through. So anyway,
that's a great idea. Like I love ending on the simplicity of that. He said it, bringing 2,000 students is a lot. And even if you chunk that down and you say 200 kids, we're going to get 200 kids. It doesn't seem that not doable anymore. Now it feels like, oh, we probably could do that. Who do we have to talk to? Like that starts to feel like how movements like this get started, how you take it up to recruit kids. We're not looking to recruit every kid. We're looking to recruit 100 kids. That's great. Thank you, Peter. I loved it. You've been listening to An Imperfect Leader, the Superintendents and Leadership Podcast. I will see you next time, Peter.
See you next week. Music for An Imperfect Leader was written and arranged by Ian Varley. Sam Falbo created our artwork, a wood print-inspired Daruma doll butterfly. Remember, imperfect leadership is not a scarlet letter. It's a badge of honor. It recognizes that serving as a lead learner is about being a vulnerable leader, an empathetic leader, a compassionate leader. And I'm proud to be an imperfect leader. I'm Peter Stiepelman.
And I'm Jamie Almansan.
Please join us next time for another episode of An Imperfect Leader, the Superintendents and Leadership Podcast.